I've been attending Camp Rockwater for about 4 years now. I just loved camping, being able to see some new faces, getting to do fun and exciting activities. My favorite part was the river rope swing. I never wanted to leave that swing once I got on. I was just so excited to go back, mainly because it'll be my last year I went. Summer finally came, and it was time to head back to camp. When I got to camp after a 4-hour car ride, I was so excited. I was just on a big nostalgic trip remembering all of my old favorite places. First things first, my mom had to take me into the lodge to get signed up. When we got to the lodge, there were a lot of people there. We waited in line until it was our turn to sign up. Before we were handed any papers, the lady at the table told us that there had been recently weird things going on a few miles down through the woods from us. I kinda just ignored it. My mom helped me lug my suitcase to the cabin. When we got there, I was so happy to see some of my old friends from last year. Kyle, one of my longtime camp friends, was sitting in the corner making his bed. Jacob, another one of my really good friends, was on the floor taking stuff out of his bag. And who could forget about Brad? He's putting stuff in the closet, like baseball bats and golf clubs. As for their other two kids, I had no idea who they were, but they both seemed to like me. Turns out they were both brothers. Their names were Brandon and Nathaniel. And being their first year, they were kind of nervous. We all got settled in, and after our parents left, we sat down and started talking about past adventures in camp. It wasn't for another hour that our cabin leader arrived. When he got in, he kind of looked at all of us with a glooming face. He turned to us and said, "Hey guys, I'm your cabin leader for the next 2 weeks. Now, before we do anything, I have to tell you that some things have changed, and we'll have to be more cautious due to some weird things that have been happening." We all were a little uneasy, but we wouldn't let that stop us from having the best summer ever. The day continued as normal. We introduced ourselves, played some card games in our cabin, went outside and played basketball, went to the mess hall to eat, and came back to the cabin to sleep. It was kind of odd that there were only 6 cabins full of people. Usually there were around 30. So the next day, when we woke up, it was raining hard. The sounds of the rain smacking the metal roofs of the cabin echoed off the distance. The camp leader was nowhere to be found. We kids kinda just sat around in the middle of the cabin just waiting for our cabin leader to get back. We started talking about some ghost stories that happened around the camp. Some of them seemed completely stupid, but others were kind of scary. Outside of our cabin, there were about 400 acres of woods. In those woods, there were some obstacle courses, the chapel, and a river. There was one more thing in the woods that nobody really knew about because it was so far off. It was the original Camp Rockwater cabins. At this point, everyone in our cabin was really scared. I swear Brad was going to have a panic attack. Our cabin leader came rushing in through the cabin door. He told us that we needed to pack our things and go to the lodge. We'll have to call our parents in the morning to tell them to take us home. We walked all the way from our cabin to the lodge in the rain, completely drenching our stuff. When we got there, only 4 other cabins had been there. As I was sitting next to the fireplace with my cabin mates, we overheard people talking about what was going on. Someone had said that all the cabin 6 had gone missing after returning from the chapel. Later that night, I woke up all of my friends. I wanted to go and check out what had happened in the woods. Though at first, all my friends were very hesitant, they still agreed to tag along with me. We grabbed a few flashlights and snuck past the cabin leaders that were sleeping near the exit. When we got outside, it was still raining, but now it was pitch black outside. This still didn't stop us from heading over to the woods. When our group finally got to the mouth of the woods, Brad and Jake just couldn't do it. They silently walked back to the lodge through a shortcut in the gardens. All that were left were Kyle, Brandon, Nathaniel, and I. We walked slowly through the thin path towards the chapel. Every now and then, we would trip over some uprooted trees, but still, we kept going. We could see the chapel ahead of us, but there was something wrong. It was very quiet. The rain had stopped. There was no wind, nor any kind of animal in sight. As we walked to the chapel, Brandon, who was carrying one of the flashlights, just started screaming. He ran as fast as he could back towards the camp and dropped his flashlight. The lights was shining towards the chapel, and through one of the illuminated windows, we saw a face of a child crying. We all screamed and started to run towards the camp. Out of fear, we lost all sense of direction and had no idea where we were. We came up to the ravine that led down to the river. There was a small black figure that blocked our path. The only way out was taking the ravine. Nathaniel, Kyle, and I began scaling down the side of the ravine, and we noticed another figure, but of our own. I shined my flashlight down away, and there was Brandon, lying dead, head smashed in, blood everywhere. He must have tripped on the uprooted tree and fallen down the side of the ravine, but we had to keep running. We were halfway down the ravine, and we could feel the sweat falling into our eyes like ocean water. And there it was again, a figure of a little boy standing at the end of the ravine, waiting for us to play with him. I told everyone just to keep running. I looked behind us, and Nathaniel had disappeared, completely gone. Kyle and I saw an old stairs coming up to our left that led up to the back part of the camp. When we got to the stairs and we were almost at the top, we could hear the kids saying, "We can play with all the rocks." We didn't stop to look back. We ran all the way to the lodge. When we got there, all of the cabin leaders had been awakened. 2 other cabins had left to go and investigate what was going on in those woods. They both went missing. Kyle finally spoke up. He had said anything all night until now. I saw him. The boy just wanted to play with us. Years have passed since that encounter. Kyle was sent into a mental hospital for serious mental trauma. Jake and Brad were found buried under the chapel after they demolished it. Their bodies were cut up, their hands off, and put into small chests across for them. As for the other 3 cabin of kids, nobody ever found out what happened or where they went. Maybe they just didn't care. I don't know.